Great day, great day. This is Tammy J with The Texture of Me. Welcome to the show. Our show provides a place where people can voice their experiences and having dealt with discrimination because of the texture of their hair. Great day, great day. This is Tammy J with The Texture of Me. I am so excited to have our special guest today, Representative Leslie Herod. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Before we get started, I always like to share who my guests are for me. And, when I was reading about what you've been up to, the changes that you're making in the world is so impactful. I'm so moved by it.
Oh.
I mean, pioneer. I mean, you're the powerhouse. I mean, I'm just like, wow. Thank you for what you're doing. And you've been in office since, you're like, I gotta keep going and going. You've been in office since 2016, so that's been 6 years. Oh my gosh, Leslie. I am Representative Leslie. You said call you Leslie, but I like acknowledging you even with that name, just because I'm clear the work that you're doing is making a huge difference all over the world. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your support. I wouldn't be able to do what I've been able to do without the support of folks like you, without people on the ground pushing me forward and telling me what really matters.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And so I'm going to acknowledge a few things you have accomplished, because you've done so many. Let's see, been in the office since 2016. Mm-hmm. You've passed over 100 bills addressing criminal justice reform, mental health, addiction, youth homelessness, and civil rights protection. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so the one that's dear to my heart, all of it's great, right? And you sponsored the Crown Act in Colorado. Wow.
Yeah. We actually introduced the Crown Act before it was called the Crown Act. And so we changed the name at the end of the bill because it was so new, I had heard about a young woman right here in Colorado who was told that she couldn't cheer on her competition cheerleading squad unless she could get her ponytail to look like her teammates. And I was a cheerleader and I remember some of the struggles of that. And so I called and reached out just to let her know that I was proud of her and her mom and for standing up for what she believed in. And then I kind of realized that I could do more than just support. I could change the law. And so as we heard about these different types of incidences happening across the country, I was looking and researching along with other Black women legislators across the country at the same time that we didn't know to figure out why it was that people could discriminate against us based solely on our hairstyles or the way that our hair grew out of our head and it not be considered racial discrimination. And so we took that and I said, it's, we looked at the law, we looked at the courts and said, you know what, we can pass and we need to pass a specific law that says that this is discrimination and put it right into our anti-discrimination codes. And so that's what we did in Colorado. We said you cannot discriminate based on hairstyle in the workplace, in places of education, and in other places, housing and public accommodations, because we were finding that it happens everywhere. And if you talk to any Black woman or person with dreads or anything like that, they'll tell you, yeah, I've been discriminated against because of my hair. Or yes, I've been told to change my hairstyle to fit some kind of mold. And it happens in every facet of society. And now in Colorado, it's illegal.
Oh, I so love that. So I want to know, did you have an experience yourself as far as being discriminated with your hair ever?
Absolutely. I mean, I think as Black women, our hair journeys start in very similar places. I mean, I was told as a young woman by my mom that we had to wear our certain hair a certain way if we wanted to be respected in society and treated with respect. And I carried that my entire life. And I was a swimmer. And so kind of feeling the shame of what my hair looks like wet and really internalizing that, you know what I mean? And then how long it took for me to get ready to go to class and, being called a diva because I needed to straighten my hair for an hour while also damaging it, of course. because that was what was presentable, and then realizing as I've kind of come into my own, that that's not the way things have to be. And I look at your hair and I'm like, it's beautiful. I wish I would spend the time to get it to look like that. You know what I mean? And so now I'm more open to wearing protective styles, to wearing, my hair curly, to wearing it up, to wearing it in different ways, because I don't need to fit anyone's mold. And sometimes that means wearing extensions like I have on now and being very proud to say it. It's like, I like to wear different styles now that I wouldn't have been able to or thought that I could because of what's acceptable. And I'll be damned if my hair makes people think about my intelligence. That's absurd, Instead, I think that the creativity that we can express through our hair and the pride for ourselves and our culture shows so much more.
I just love you so real, because I was about to say, what about this and that? And it's like, you embrace it. That's the thing for me about, when I created the texture of me, I'm not saying that everybody has to wear their hair natural, but at least we have a choice.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in Colorado, though it is dry here, as you know. Yes. And so it's hard to wear my hair any other way than in a protective style, which right now is in extensions, because it's so dry here and it breaks off so easily. And with lack of time, by the way. Thank you. With lack of time, it just makes it really hard, but really understanding what our hair can and can't be and how it should be is a journey. And that's why we need folks, educators like you, who are really helping us to become healthy, internally and externally, mind and body. And that includes our hair. And so I really appreciate watching and learning from you and seeing the information that you put out there, because it's quite frankly, it's just so useful. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Being that this is Mental Health Month, I, am present to the mental challenges or psychological implications that hair discrimination has on people with textured hair. I really want to acknowledge you for passing, if I bear with me with the terms, right? But raising the money of $35 million toward addressing mental health.
Yeah. Mental health is a struggle. And it's been something that our community has struggled with for a long time, but quite frankly, our entire population. And so I think I started to, again, put away some of the shame around mental health and substance misuse. My sister has been in and out of incarceration for about 30 years because of mental health challenges, trauma, and substance misuse. And stepping away from that and the shame around that and saying, what can we do better? How can we change this? And one of the things that we know is that our society doesn't value people's well-being enough to help support it, Right. So I ran a ballot measure called Caring for Denver, and asked Denverites to support mental health. And it's created a $35 million annual budget for mental health and substance misuse that was not there before. And I'm the chair of the foundation now. We've been able to get $55 million out in 2 years and are just really excited to see how long-term we can transform not only access to mental health and substance misuse services, but actually how we think about addressing some of the root causes. It's no wonder that Black women are burned out. It's no wonder that we face higher levels of depression, anxiety, even if we don't call it that, and so we've got to work through that together as a community. And it might not look like the same way that a white folk person might deal with it. It might not look the same. It might look completely different, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be valued. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be funded. And that doesn't mean it shouldn't be a primary part of how we live our lives. And so that's something that I'm really focusing on. And I'm glad you brought that up during Mental Health Month, because it's so important. And I think as we start to take more even pride in ourselves, in our families, and in our culture, through our hair, and through other expressions, through art, and all other kind of expressions of who we are, that in turn does impact our well-being. But we've got to address some of the other issues like generational wealth, like housing instability, like mass incarceration, if we really want to thrive as a community and a society.
Right. And one of the things that I feel like my portion or contribution to society is bringing awareness of the psychological and mental barriers that hair discrimination has on people with textured hair.
Yeah.
And, I know I've shared before about my discovery, and I didn't realize that I had mental barriers for myself until I decided to go on my natural hair journey. And now in my research and sharing it and through my dissertation, people are now speaking more about it because I felt like it was a huge missing. Even in the Crown Act, they talked about like as early as 5 years old, these young girls are being affected, of being discriminated so much so that they're actually missing school. So, having the funds to support the mental challenges as far as funding to making sure they have that service available, that is phenomenal. And one of the things to address is that that it is going on. So thank you for what you're doing, because I really, really see there's a gap in society of where mental health, a lot of times people look at physical health more than they will look at mental health, and mental health is huge. So thank you for what you're doing in that.
Absolutely. It's so important. And I want to just also acknowledge that, we didn't pick up these notions on our own, and of course they were passed to us by our parents too, but that was out of protection. A lot of times they just want us to succeed. But don't forget that it's been validated, right? Over and over and over again by these white supremacist institutions that do say that we have to wear our hair a certain way, that do say that we're outside of dress codes or the lines of acceptability, just for being who we are. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that it doesn't just come from inside. It's really validated by every other cultural institution that exists right here in this country. And so we've got to embrace it, whether that's wearing our hair the natural way, wearing big hoops, you know what I mean? Wearing your bold lip and looking however you want. Like, that is a part of who we are. And it shouldn't be told that it is unacceptable because we're expressing our culture and ourselves.
Great day, great day. We at The Texture of Me thank you so much for your support and listening. Join us on our Facebook group in Changing the Stigma of Textured Hair. And to sign up for our programs, you can at www.thetextureofme.com/education. Again, thank you so much for your support. Now back to the show.
Going back to the Crown Act, since it's been passed, what have you been noticing in Denver? What's been going on, or the impact it's made?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So I've had a lot of folks reach out to my office and tell me that they've been discriminated against, or tell me that the Crown Act, they've heard I worked on the Crown Act. How can they get the Crown Act in their workplace? And I'm like, wait a minute, you already have it in your workplace. This affects everybody in the state. They don't know. And so the discrimination is continuing to happen. And so what we find is that, as I tell folks, okay, send them this bill, send them this law, and make sure that they know that they are violating the law and that they could be sued by the state of Colorado. And they do. And all of a sudden we see dress codes changing right away. We see policy changes, and that is empowering people, both, people our age, younger folks in their schools. It's empowering them because they're seeing that they can actually make change by advocating for themselves. And we're seeing that across the board. We have seen some lawsuits move forward around the Crown Act, but quite frankly, not a lot, because people are remedying the situation very quickly. So as they don't face those consequences.
Addressing it.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's really good to know, because I was wondering like how that actually impacts what's been going on and how it's been really impacting everything. So that's what I wanted to know, because I know in Texas, we haven't had it passed yet.
Yeah. So, we got to pass it at the state level. We got to pass it at the local levels. We've got to pass it at the federal levels. We've got to do everything that we can to make sure that it's in place. And some places are going to continue to not support it. But the places that do, we have to really push it and continue to push the conversation until we get to a critical mass. Our victories are never won overnight. They're never easily or quickly won, but we can win. We just have to keep fighting for it. And we have to keep showing people that discriminating against folks is not okay. Making people take out their braids in the middle of a sports competition is not okay. Making folks not, keeping them from getting a job because they have dreadlocks is not okay. These are things that we have to continue to change. And we are professional. We can be professional as we want to be. We can also shift what professionalism is. We know this because we've been sitting on Zoom screens for 2 years, and folks thought you had to go into an office and be very traditional, and we know that that's not true.
Right.
So we can change the game. We don't have to continue to uphold the status quo, but it takes a spark, and everyone in their community has the ability to be that spark to make that change.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just think about just the level of self-expression that's been missing. And now we're able to really express ourselves, and it doesn't affect our effectiveness and what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, that's something that we have to continue to support and support each other. Don't let that Black person or that Indigenous person who's having to deal with people at work telling them that they can't wear their hair in their cultural way or their natural way or however they want to wear it. Don't let them stand up to that fight alone. Stand with them. And any allies or champions that are watching this as well, stand with folks who need that support, because we shouldn't stand alone when we're fighting discrimination. We should stand together.
Yes, for sure, for sure. I think it is an opportunity for companies to even have some level of diversity training. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. We need a lot more diversity training. The whole "don't touch my hair," right? People still don't understand that. Or they think we're just being divas or mean, but really, don't touch my hair. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Let's, if we need to talk about it, we need to run a whole freaking sermon on it. We should, because this is what needs to happen. And people still don't really understand it, and they think it's funny. And quite frankly, it can create a hostile work environment or a hostile environment. And so we do need to have more diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations around this. It goes beyond tolerance and really towards understanding and acceptance, and celebration. And so I do wholeheartedly support a lot of businesses and entities that are doing that. I will say that when we passed the Crown Act in Colorado, we did have businesses like Comcast and T-Mobile and other bigger corporations that have said, we've already changed our hair policies. We embrace folks for whatever hairstyle they want to wear, whatever tattoos they got, like whatever, as long as they're good at their job. And we embrace them, and we embrace that. And so we were able to work with corporations to pass the Crown Act, corporations that had already said, we're doing things differently,
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really empowering and encouraging to see. And so we need to continue to push our businesses to do right, and to really focus on our work and who we are as people, as opposed to discriminating against us based on our hair.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think about the schools and people making changes in that. Because even I remember I had a professor reach out to me on a student where the other professor, who happens to be white or Caucasian, and the young student is African American, and the teacher asked, "Could she touch your hair?" The professor asked to touch her hair. And she's like, how do I manage that? What do I say?
Yeah.
And part of the work with the Texture of Me, we provide a level of education of diversity training, and just giving her tips on how to address it, and really collectively, because in some cases I feel like there's no harm being meant, but there's just something that's not known to even say or do,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I don't think people are, intentionally doing this all the time, but it is becoming more of a challenge, but also something that people are raising more awareness around. And so, I think it's important that we push back and we say it's not okay. And sorry if you're offended, but you should know this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, when we know better, we do better, right?
Right. So that's how I feel about it. And, it's like, we also know that we're leaving spaces that are not celebrating and embracing us, but we also know that that's a privilege, right? People can't just up and quit work all the time. People can't always stand up and speak out to against their boss who they think might retaliate against them when they've got to make their hours, or they've got to feed their kids, you know what I mean? Or they've got to just work or go to school. And so it's really important, again, that we support each other, but we also don't judge folks who can't speak up, or can't say anything, because they're in a difficult circumstance too. That's why we have to pass these laws that give them the support to be able to.
Awesome. Now, for our listeners,
and I should add that the Crown Act not only says that you can't do something, you can't discriminate, but you can't be retaliated against for. And so that's really important too, that anti-retaliation piece. You cannot retaliate against someone for bringing a discrimination suit forward. And so that's important to note.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I didn't know that. Yeah. So, for our listeners and our viewers, how can we get the Crown Act? Because I know it was passed by the Senate, right? And what does that mean once I don't know if it's approved, or what does that look like? What would that mean? Because I know it still is not approved in some states.
Yeah, so federally, it's not been signed into law. Okay. So we don't have a national Crown Act right now, though we have some amazing champions who continue to move the needle on the Crown Act in the process. And so I believe it's passed the House. It hasn't passed the Senate yet. And we still have to pass it at the state levels as well. And so, it's really at the local level, talking to your city council person or your alderman, and then at the state level, your state representative, senator, or assembly person, and getting it passed through that way. Always reach out to your Black Caucus members. There's a Black Caucus in most every state. Ask them what you can do to support them in their efforts to pass the Crown Act. There are efforts going on in almost every state in the nation. And so having that support and knowing that there's people in the community that support them is really important. And then you can go to the Crown Campaign's website and find out what exactly is going on in your state. You can submit your story. And that is something that we use in testimony, or could reach out to you and ask you to testify before a legislative body. And you can map progress there as well. And so I think that it's really important to look into all of those steps and figure out what is best for your state and join the effort. I'll also say that Dove is one of the sponsors of the Crown Campaign alongside of Oprah. And so we are getting a lot of visibility around this issue, but it's only because people have started to share their stories, and also electing folks like me who could do something about it with the support of the community.
Yeah, so you're doing some big things, and thank you so much for what you're doing, and so many things that you're doing. So I don't know what else to ask, because you got it. I love what you're doing and the impact that you're making in Denver, and actually all over the world. And, I'm really present to the impact you're making, I think, even to the past, the present, and the future, because what it was before is no longer what it is now, and then paving the way for our youth. So thank you for what you're doing. Appreciate that greatly.
Oh, well, thank you so much for all of your support, for reaching out. It's been good chatting with you and following your journey. I can't wait to come out and visit you next time, one of these days.
Yes.
And just let me know how I can help. And to all your listeners, please feel free to reach out to me on social media or email at leslieherod.com. And let me know how I can support you all in advocating for whatever it is you think that we need to be working on.
Yeah. And I know I'm looking forward to connecting with you about more textured hair education in Denver. So we'll talk, we'll chat, and again, thank you for being on our show. And again, where can they find you again, your social media? What is it again?
Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I'm just at Leslie Herod. That's LeslieHerod.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and I appreciate you greatly, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the show, please share it with others, post about it on your social media, leave a rating and review. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.